There's some peer-reviewed research about spirituality and the electrical impulses in the brain that will blow your mind about God. I mean, it does mine. Hi, I'm Jeremy. I'm a deep skeptic, also a pastor. So here's what the researchers found. They were measuring electrical impulses in the brain when people had spiritual experiences or recalled spiritual experiences. And they found, first, that there are spiritual parts of the brain, right? There are specific parts of the brain that light up when people have these spiritual experiences, that have like activity when that's going on. The other thing that is interesting is that they didn't just study people of one spiritual tradition. They studied people across multiple spiritual traditions, people that consider themselves deeply spiritual. And what is interesting, that I think has really interesting implications about God and religion and all of that, is that there is really one set of locations in the brain that are triggered when people have spiritual experiences, and they are the same places across all religious experiences. Now, again, that might not be surprising to you, but it has some really interesting implications about God. And the first implication is that when people are having spiritual experiences, they're having the same experience. Like they're feeling the same things, the same parts of their brains are lighting up. They are having the sort of same cognitive experience. It doesn't matter what religion they are in. Which means that when people are describing those spiritual experiences, they're using different words. They're using words from their own faith traditions, their own sacred texts, their own sort of verbiage to describe those experiences. And so like an evangelical Christian might talk about the movement of the Holy Spirit, right? A person who is maybe not evangelical, but is more progressive, they might talk about sort of an ecstatic experience or whatever, and each religious tradition will have different words, but it's the same basic experience. And let me say this, it also could indicate that really the experience of God is just synapses in our brain firing. I get that. But the other thing that it implies is that, well, there's this part of the Bible in Romans chapter 1 that I think is sort of connected to this idea. In Romans chapter 1, it says that since the beginning of the world, God's inherent qualities have been visible through what has been made. That God has been speaking to everybody from the beginning. Everybody. And that means everybody, everywhere. People who live in different parts of the world, people who grew up with different religious traditions. And that is an interesting implication about God. I mean, what if God is bigger than religion? And a religious tradition is actually just a way of describing and relating to God through different practices. But what if God was bigger than religion? Like, what if God was just always calling out to everyone and saying, like, come on, engage with me. Like, find a practice that works so that you can engage with me. Like, what if that was it? Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that all religions are the same. I'm also not saying that one religion is true and one religion is false. But what I'm saying is the brain science implies that everyone having a spiritual experience, regardless of their religion, is experiencing the same thing. And there's an implication for me that is really practical, and that is to say that religions and religious people need to stop fighting against each other. They need to stop trying to say, oh, no, we're right and they are wrong. Instead, they need to come together and work together, continue their distinctiveness, continue their distinctive traditions, but recognize that there is science that actually says They have more in common than they have different. And that means that they could work together for the common good, for the common benefit of humanity, instead of fighting against each other and trying to say who's right and who's wrong.